This is part 2 of Wounded Knee 1973. So I'd like to go on record and tell you a little situation that nobody knows except a few of the U.S. Marshals. While the Wounded Knee incidents were going on, the American Indian movement, there was going to be a scheduled hearing at the Deadwood, South Dakota city. There's a federal judge and a federal courthouse there. And so Russell Means was scheduled to appear there for a hearing, a bond hearing, I believe. I don't recall, but there was a hearing, and the judge wanted 2 U.S. Marshals there because he was going to place him into custody. Well, my friend and co-worker, Deputy Moyer, and myself were assigned to go, and we had come from Los Angeles. We were assigned to go to Deadwood and stay at the courthouse, and when Russell Means showed up, the judge was going to revoke his bail, and we were going to take him into custody. Well, we waited a half hour, we waited 45 minutes. The judge says, he's not showing. I'm issuing a bench warrant for his arrest, and marshals, go find him. I want him arrested. So I go back to the local sheriff's office, because we got to be friendly with the local sheriff there at the time. Deadwood, a fantastic city. You should go there and visit. Great place. So anyhow, I phoned my marshal in Los Angeles, Gaylord Campbell, and I said, hey, Gaylord, the guy didn't show up. Means did not show up, so the judge put a bench warrant out on him. So he said, okay, we'll find him. Russell Means was actually at the Indian Center in Los Angeles. So my boss, Gaylord Campbell, the marshal, was a former LAPD officer. He called the LAPD. They went over and picked him up, arrested him, and brought him over to the U.S. courthouse. And then the marshals took custody and then put him in front of a federal judge right there at the U.S. courthouse on 312 North Spring Street in Los Angeles, where the marshal's office was, or it still is, rather. So, a little story, and Means never knew it. I guess he never would have cared either. Keep watching. We got more to do about Wounded Knee 1973. Wounded Knee 1973. Bill Keefer, supervisor, Deputy U.S. Marshal, Deputy James Moyer, and Deputy John Freeman volunteered services at Wounded Knee 1973. Office of Bureau of Indian Affairs Building, Pine Ridge Reservation, and constant on-site supervision at the Wounded Knee Forward Command Post, a large motorhome designated Broken Arrow. The Wounded Knee incident began on February 27, 1973, when approximately 200 Oglala Lakota, and more so, a lot of followers of the American Indian movement, AIM, seized and occupied the town of Wounded Knee, South Dakota, on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Oglala and AIM activists controlled the town for 71 days. Initially, Bureau of Indian Affairs Police from Pine Ridge BIA tried to disband the large law-breaking activist party. They were repelled by the activists' larger and armed force. The activists stole weapons and ammunition from the Wounded Knee Trading Post store and burned down the White Cloud Museum while in a drunken fury. In May 1973, AIM leaders invited Reverend Paul Bowe of the American Lutheran Church, ALC, to visit them at Wounded Knee for religious counseling. Bowe had an established relationship with them as a result of ALC's ministry to American Indians under his leadership. Indeed, AIM had been formed with ALC financial assistance at Reverend Bowe's urging. Later ended up in jail. They were released eventually, but he went to jail for this as conspirator. Deputy Keefer and Moyer
assigned in Los Angeles and volunteered to serve at Wounded Knee. Also was assigned to go to Deadwood, U.S. Courthouse. Russell Means was scheduled to appear for a hearing. The judge was going to revoke his bond and put him in custody. Means did not show up. Bench warrant was issued for his arrest. Keefer phoned Marshal Campbell in Los Angeles. Means was arrested at the Los Angeles Indian Center and was in front of a Los Angeles federal judge at the U.S. Courthouse in Los Angeles by Marshal Campbell and deputies. Truth is, the activist held all the Wounded Knee residents hostage. He kidnapped them for 71 days. He was no good guy. He was a criminal. While the United States Marshal Service, FBI agents, and other law enforcement agencies, Border Patrol was one of them, cordoned off all the area, there were 5 spots all around that had were the main tent area. They had 30-man Army tents, and it was a big ring around Wounded Knee with spaced semi-evenly all the way around, and they had huge 30-man Army tents in each position with armored personnel carriers. So they were going to contain these group of wild Indians, all right. The activists chose the site of the 1890 Wounded Knee Massacre for its symbolic value. Both sides were armed and shooting was frequent, and that's true. I was there. The equipment maintained by the military, U.S. Army, by the way, while in use during the siege, included 15 armored personnel carriers, clothing, rifles, grenade launchers, flares, and 133,000 rounds of ammunition for a total cost, including the use of maintenance personnel from the National Guard of 5 states and pilot and planes for aerial photographs, who were the pilots. The helicopters were private helicopter pilots that were doing contract labor. The aerial photographs were submitted by the Bureau of Land Management. They had flyovers, and we got that information. Costs of over $500,000 for this little charade of Russell Means and the gang. The data gathering by the historians' records and Hocker largely concur. Barricades of the paramilitary personnel armed with automatic weapons, snipers, helicopters, armored personnel carriers equipped with 50 caliber machine guns. That was reported. There were no snipers and there were no 50 caliber machine guns on the armored personnel carriers. I know, I was there. And more than 130,000 rounds of ammunition. That's true. The statistics on the U.S. government force at Wounded Knee vary, but all accounts agree it was a significant military force, including federal marshals, FBI agents, and let's include Border Patrol. I know they were there too. I was with them. And armored personnel vehicles. One eyewitness and journalists described sniper fire from federal helicopters. That did not happen. I know. No. Federal helicopters, they were helicopters we used local pilots to use their helicopter, and there was nobody snipering from helicopters. What an exaggeration. Although when the Indians started shooting from a hamlet toward any of the areas occupied by marshals, we returned the fire. That's for sure. Both AIM and federal government documents show that the two sides traded fire through much of the 3 months. This is true. Early in the fighting, an FBI agent was fatally wounded by fire from the town. And Wikipedia says citation needed. I never heard that any FBI agent was killed. I never heard that. The only thing I knew was a marshal, the U.S. Marshal Lloyd Grimm, was shot earlier in the conflict and suffered paralysis from the waist down. That's true, but it was the Indians firing from the hamlet. The bullet struck an armored personnel carrier and ricocheted off the tank-like vehicle, and the ricochet hit the marshal. So he didn't get a direct hit. It was a ricochet off a armored personnel carrier. A gun was fired from one of the activists and wounded knee. He's paralyzed for life. Both sides reached an agreement on May 5th to disarm. With the decision made, many Oglala Lakota began to leave Wounded Knee at night, walking out through the federal lines. 3 days later, the siege ended, and the town was evacuated after 71 days of occupation. The government took control of the town. This is true. Both sides reached an agreement on May 5th to disarm. With the decision made, many Oglala Lakota began to leave Wounded Knee at night, walking out through the federal lines. 3 days later, the siege ended and the town was evacuated after 71 days of occupation. The government took control of the town. Deputy Keefer was the deputy U.S. Marshal at the scene and said there were no persons between federal agents and the town, and that the federal marshals' firepower, that's quoted as, would have killed anyone. But I said, federal marshals' firepower. But I said, and that the federal marshals' firepower could have killed anyone in the open landscape. The Marshal Service decided to wait out the AIM followers in order to reduce casualties on both sides. That was a no-brainer. They weren't going anywhere. They had no food. They had no water. Marshal Service says, we're going to wait them out because we figured if we made an attack, a frontal attack, that there would be a lot of police, marshals, FBI agents killed, as well as innocent folks in the hamlet. So it was prudent just to sit there and wait, and eventually they'd run out of food and water and surrender, which they did. I'm Bill Keefer, former United States Marshal. I served at Wounded Knee in 1973, and I was there. Till next time. '44-year anniversary coming up real soon at Wounded Knee 1973. If you want to see my name, just Google Wounded Knee 1973 and you'll look at Wikipedia, and it's down quite a ways. It talks about actions, and it says Deputy Keefer says that anyone within the confines of where the
the Indians were, where the marshals were, would have been killed in that area. And that was what I said. I said, could be killed. No problem. Keep watching. Wounded Knee, 1973.
Units going to Dwighton's Forest, responsible, 2 unknown race subjects, possibly male and female, 5'6"